Warhammer 40,000 Darktide has got some pretty big issues that it's dealing with right now. And this brings up the age-old question in the current game industry climate of, can Darktide survive the storm? If you clicked this video thinking this would be a negative rant of me talking endlessly about things I do not like without any proposed solutions, then I will tell you right now, that shan't be the case. Nay, rather the focus of this video is to talk about a game that I deeply love and have put a ton of hours into. At its core, I think Darktide is a fantastic game with an amazing level of detail poured into the atmosphere that makes it easily one of the best 40K video game representations out there. The way I'll be doing this video is by first addressing the 5 primary issues that I personally feel exist within the game. Then I'll go into each issue, giving my proposed solution that can act as either a true fix or a band-aid until more time can be dedicated to fixing said issue. Everything I'm talking about is obviously subjective, and what I'm proposing is more of a spitball than something I think needs to happen 100% to the letter. Before we get started, one thing I will say is that if you have any follow-up commentary about things that you want added, changed, or fixed to the game, whatever it is, formulate your thoughts in a way that you're addressing what the issue is and how that issue is preventing you from having fun / accomplishing your goal. The more we attack a developer's personnel, the individuals that really don't have a true say in any big decisions, the more they will dismiss toxic ideas that might actually have some good information behind them. If you love the game, if you're fed up, if you're in the middle, all those are fine stances to have. You paid your money for an experience, and that experience looks different for everyone. Just remember that. Anyway, you can jump ahead to any point in the video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitch as I stream Darktide Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday every week. We do community matches, giveaways, and I ramble about a lot of dumb stuff. Lastly, if you enjoy the video or end up enjoying the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and or subscribe. Each one of those helps out any content creator you watch in a huge way, while also funding my mini Aussie's inability to stop tearing up all of his damn chew toys. Let's get started on Can FatShark Save Darktide? So to open us up, let's talk about the issues that the game currently has going for it, right? The big 5 that I really correlate to the things that are hindering people from enjoying the game further, or it's what kind of has put a roadblock up for those of us that have a considerable amount of time invested into the game. Now, these are not in any specific order. It's mainly just the big 5. Maybe the first one's the one I think is the most important because it probably could affect the game in a big way. But the first one I want to say is the missing crafting system. We all know we were promised a crafting system by the end of the year when the game came out. They're saying, hey, by the end of December, the crafting system will be in its entirety added to the game. Now, I think that the crafting system is a huge part of the replayability of the game because it allows you to do a lot of cool things and a lot of customization to the weapons that we were promised along the development cycle of the game. So the missing crafting system is a huge issue and one I want to talk about, and probably the first one we're going to talk about after this section. Then it's the modifiers and rotating modifiers of the map. And of the maps themselves. I think that the maps have too few modifiers. We only have 4 right now in the game. And those map modifiers really only seem to be high and low intensity, with the hounds and lights out coming in random waves that then just kind of disappear after 2 or 3 hours. And that I think is a really big issue. We have this cool modifier system and we don't really seem to be tapping into it. Another issue is the maps or the mission improvements as a whole. Now, obviously, I would love to see more maps added to the game, and I think that is going to happen. And on top of that, I think that more tile sets or missions within those maps are a big thing. But a big problem with that is that the current system for maps or missions as a whole is very convoluted, very rough, because you have maps, then in the maps are missions, and of those missions you have modifiers, and all those things present themselves on a board of 12 total missions, and those 12 total missions have differing times of when they come up and off of the board, of different difficulty, different modifier, and different secondary objective. It's dizzying in and of itself. So that is a big issue I see. Also, we have the store itself, as well as Emperor's Gifts. Right now, the only way to get weapons in the game is to either buy them through Melk or get them in the store that refreshes every hour. No one wants to deal with waiting every hour to see if weapons pop up that they like or that really help them or maybe fit into the build they've got in mind, or maybe they're chasing after the Mark V Antax Combat Axe with Brutal Momentum. They're just sitting there and refreshing that web page or going to the store every hour to see if they can actually tap into a weapon that they need. It's not a reliable system, and it doesn't reward the player for playing the game, which is an unfortunate byproduct, whereas Vermintide 1 and 2 did. Also, lastly, better communication. At the current stance of the game, and they've said that there's more transparent and better communication coming, so we will address that open letter did exist. It really kind of has to do with the situation as it presents itself across the community managers, across the communication back to us, and also the feedback that we're giving and what feedback is being actioned on and what isn't. So those are the big 5 issues that I've kind of addressed here, or we will be addressing. The ones that I wanted to kind of talk about what their pain points are, and we'll talk about more of their pain points in the respective sections, but this at least gives you an idea of the arguments we're going to be jumping into as we move forward in this video. Let's move over to crafting and talk about Mommy Hadron, or, which is ironically misspelled, Hardon. So looking over here at Intrigue Hadron, we have our crafting system as it exists right now. We can consecrate to increase the rarity of things, you know, from green or from gray into green, green into blue, blue into purple, purple into orange, or refine an item, which is the most recent crafting convention, as it were. And let's see, do I have one? Aha. How this works is we click over here, we select one of these 2 perks, it will lock the opposite one, and then we can refine it and essentially re-roll the perk. The perk will either be level 3 or level 4, and it's going to cost us diamantine as well as plasteel, more plasteel than diamantine. That is the extent of the crafting system right now, right? And I think that all FatShark needs to do right now, in the meantime, obviously I want a full-blown different crafting system with whatever re-bless and earn blessing really mean. But if they just simply said, hey, you know what? We're working on the completing the crafting system. We understand it's not to the snuff that you guys wanted, but we have given you a temporary re-bless. Maybe it even says like re-bless and next week. No, it says re-bless and it says soon to be changed or whatever. But it would give me the exact same capability as the perk one does, only weighing heavier on diamantine than plasteel. I know that is not the ultimate best fix, and I know that can be misconstrued so many ways, and you might have a different way of looking at that, but I think just simply changing it so that we can re-roll blessings is going to be huge. Because if I take a look at, say, this combat axe, if I were to re-roll onto this Brutal Momentum, I could finally go and test out Brutal Momentum on my Zealot. I don't have a Brutal Momentum combat axe. I can't seem to make it work. I can't seem to find one. This one's got Decimator, and that's pretty good, I guess. But if you get Limb Splitter on a Brutal Momentum combat axe, you've just made that an actual piece of crap axe, because a Limb Splitter is a terrible blessing that makes the axe do less damage. So you might have gotten your god tier roll, but you just butchered it because you pushed it into orange and got Limb Splitter. So right now, the current crafting system can almost punish you if you take advantage of it to its fullest. And that is a little bit of an issue. Being able to remove swap blessings or whatever it is, I'm sure earn blessing is going to work in a different way. Either maybe we get a 3rd blessing, or we'll be able to add a blessing or swap a blessing off and increase its tiers. I don't really know, but I'm just saying as a quick fix, as a way to make it so that I can test out all these different weapons and all these different combinations. If we just simply had the ability to swap out blessings like we could perks, I think it would increase things tenfold. Because I think the biggest problem too is that the Antax Mark V Brutal Momentum Combat Axe is the flavor of the month right now, because we really can't test a bunch of different variations of a bunch of different weapons out. In my brain, somewhere in my dumb head, I think that the Chainsword with both Devastating Strike and Shred is a good option, or both of the Chainsword unique Shred and the generic Shred onto this weapon could be a cool way to circumvent the quote-unquote bleed build. But I can't test it reliably because I have to try and get those blessings to kick off in a random fashion. Removing that RNG, adding that replayability, reducing the fact that everyone's going to stick to just going for one single weapon because it's a reliably good weapon to somehow kind of get, is unfortunately a big downfall of the game right now, and this helps alleviate that. And we're going to stay on this screen for the next 2 points, but more map modifiers is a big thing here. So currently, with the 4 modifiers in the game, all the maps just feel stagnant. Adding a few real minor but fun modifiers would allow for a lot more map variety than simply juggling between high and low intensity, right? We only have 2 low intensities on the map right now. These don't need to be, crazy, but something like more maulers or more monstrosities. Just add some layer of difficulty and variety that isn't too far in the direction of a map changing modifier so much as a gameplay changing one. So for an example, Lights Out is a map changing modifier, right? I don't know what kind of coding is done behind that. Versus Hounds. Okay, well, the Hounds event spawned for you. All right, well, rather than 1 Hound, you get 2. Cool. Great. There you go. It's just simply changing an integer, or so it would seem from my peon eyes on the back end of it. But I think those map modifiers is a pretty good thing to really play a lot with, because I could think of so many just off the top of my head, like, oh, maybe make all maulers like ragers, give me more reapers, which would be the worst thing I could imagine next to more snipers. But all these things. And this new Warzone condition portion doesn't really seem to coincide with more modifiers and conditions actually happening on a reliable timeline or scale. And if it does happen, it only happens for like an hour or 2, and then it's gone and we're just back to high and low intensity again. So the map modifiers could truly feel cool and fun and original and random and interesting, but it's just kind of lacking right now. And furthermore onto that, as it swaps, we have map or the mission board itself, improvements to that. Because maps and missions are already a confusing format. One map has multiple missions or tile sets on it. For new players, this is pretty convoluted, but I'll save that for another time, of course. I think just simply getting one more map or another mission within an existing map would be just a nice huge bump in replayability. Furthermore, when we get weeklies that ask us to do secondary objectives, like so, these objectives, like, well, just simply doing secondary objectives, grimoires, or scriptures, the mission board should mandatorily roll 50% of its missions with secondary objectives. Oh, the map isn't there that you want, no problem, it'll roll. But when you can't knock out your weeklies, because you have to wait for the maps to recycle, and even then there's no guarantee you get grims or scripts, it becomes a problem. Especially when all maps can have grims or scripts. So this isn't necessarily an addition to the game, you're just saying some sort of parameter back on the back end is saying, okay, cool, we've spawned all 12 missions, well, 6 of them are going to have grims or scripts. Boom, done. I think that can knock out weeklies better. We have a more reliable way of knowing that we're going to have those weeklies appear. And this could even extend to difficulty. You could say that, hey, there's 12 missions on the board. Well, we're going to put like 2 of every difficulty plus like some sort of variety of it. And maybe there's always secondary objectives on one of those 2. I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways you could do it. But the mission board seems like such a headache because I have to try to see if I'm going to get a grim or a script. And if I do get a grim or a script, I hope it's in a difficulty I want to play and not just running through a level 1. So I think that the mission board has so many areas for improvement, but I think just simply making it so 50% of the board can actually roll secondary objectives is a huge improvement to getting your weeklies knocked out and reliably taking care of scripts and grimoires. Now let's have a conversation about Emperor's Gifts and the store. The Emperor's Gifts are a pretty nebulous thing, right? You randomly get them without basis on a secondary objective, creatures killed, monstrosities, difficulty, anything of the sort. Even further, which might have been removed, you are capped on the total gifts across all characters per week. Characters that don't share inventory. So, rather than just arbitrarily delivering random gifts at random times, make it so that every time you fill up your experience bar, you are granted an Emperor's Gift. Then after level 30, every, say, 7,000 experience points or 10,000 experience points, just whatever that number is, grant an Emperor's Gift. This makes it so playing missions, which already grant you experience post level 30, actually contribute to a dedicated way to get items. This would be a way to reward players that are playing the game to get items they want versus just waiting every hour for a store to refresh like this. Like I'm sitting here hoping that I get the item that I want to hopefully then push it towards the crafting system that is already super RNG to hopefully make it make sense. And maybe we change the name Emperor's Gift so it doesn't feel like it's lore breaking, right? Maybe we change it to the fact that it's called an inquisitorial requisition. Hey, the Inquisition notes your hard work. Every level you get, quote unquote level you get, rewards you with something from the Inquisition. You can frame it however you want to frame it to make it work within a lore scope. But I think this is one of those things that I don't necessarily care about how the item comes to me as far as the lore is concerned. And I think that a Paragon system would be a great thing, but that requires so much more to be added to the game. I think just simply, maybe there's something, again, on the quote-unquote metaphysical backend I keep bringing up, that could simply make it so that every time you hit some level at level 30, you just simply get an Emperor's Gift. That way you're reliably getting blues, purples, and oranges. That could be something cool and different, rather than me having to go roll a random one at Melk or just sit here and hope that I get something cool. So the last big point I want to talk about is better communication. Now, we all know that we want to see this, and the open letter discussed that more communication will be coming our way. We have a new community manager, Catfish, that has done a lot of communicating to us on Discord. But I think the bigger problem here is the fact that the communication feels kind of removed. And when you already have a veteran community manager that has built a ton of trust or rapport or whatever you want to call it with the community in Oxy, you'd think you'd want to really stick with that community manager as your front-running community manager on your flagship game. And that is not throwing shade at Catfish. I just feel like they got a brand new community manager, threw that person into the flames, and took her support from the other two community managers away from them, put them back onto Vermintide, which is a game for all intents and purposes in the twilight of its development cycle. You would think that you'd want the veteran who has that trust along with Catfish to help build the trust more in with her before then moving off. So I think that creates a problem. You have these community managers that are there, and I don't really feel like FatShark has done a great job at really polling the community to find out the true pain points that they've got. That they have not maybe talked to the community in the sense of, hey, here's a poll that we're going to put out. Not from the one that they put out earlier in the year, right? A poll we're going to put out. Here's the 10 things that we have heard from you guys as to be the biggest pain points. Vote on them, choose your top 3, and then that will tell us internally what those true pain points are versus maybe some, again, metaphysical backend statistics that show us certain use statistics, and maybe the kind of little bits of conversation that community managers have had with a small sample size of an already smaller sample size of people that are on Reddit or on Discord or on forums. Talk to your top players, talk to other content creators, talk to people that maybe don't play this game a ton, but they jump on enough that you want to get an idea for what the casual player wants and what the hardcore player wants. And I feel like that is what creates true communication. Now, you don't want to get into it. There's a bear trap there, right? There's a double-edged sword of that. Too much communication just makes it so that you get a game that just kind of suffers from being watered down. And that kind of happened in World of Warcraft's early development cycles. They took too much input in, and it ended up completely throwing the game off. So there is, of course, a fine balance to be thrown here. So I think that communication does, at this point in time, because the game feels so on fire, I think showing some front-end action with a quick follow-through is a huge step in the right direction. Even more over on that, and kind of linked to it, is a roadmap. Now, a roadmap is also a double-edged sword. Look at a game like Valheim, who said their Hearth and Home patch is coming out. I think they said like Q3 or Q4 or whatever. They gave a date for when Hearth and Home was coming out, and it did not actually come out on that date, and it came out much later. That, I think, is the problem. I don't want Darktide to release a roadmap that says, hey, here's a bunch of arbitrary dates on a timeline where we will hope to get said content out. Because if it falls short, it becomes, if it comes close to that time, it either gets rushed or it gets pushed back and it falls short of the actual roadmap. So what I'd prefer to see is, hey, here's the kind of order of events of content we want to work on. We have a subclass in order as our next major content drop. After that, we'd like to work on more modifiers and map additions to the game. Then we have another subclass we have planned. This is all tentative, of course, but here is what the future of Darktide looks like for a live service game and what you can expect as a player coming in for the first time, a returning veteran, or someone who's been on the fence of both. So I think that that communication needs to exist either as community communication by community managers and showing what a roadmap looks like by creating content milestones without dates affixed to them. The dates, I think, is always kind of where developers shy away from roadmaps because they don't want to promise the stars. And I think it's really where all we want to know as players is there stuff coming? What does that stuff look like? You don't even need to be specific. Just say a subclass. I don't need to know if it's a zealot subclass. I don't even need to know if it's a 5th new class, whatever it is. Tell me there's something in the pipe so I feel like there is a future attached to the game, because that's probably the #1 comment I get on this YouTube channel as it pertains to Darktide. This game is abandoned, and or this game has no future, or they got their money, they're never going to do anything else to it. Now, of course, those are complicated statements that are not actually true. But still, when you continue to be in this situation of waiting for content to drop with a content teaser now almost a full month old, you do kind of wonder, is this game going to be dropped? It's not the first time a Warhammer 40,000 title has been dropped, right? Dawn of War 3. So I think creating that road forward is a huge step to building that kind of trust back for Darktide. And at that, it really brings our video here to a close. Now, as I've said, I love this game. I'm going to keep playing this game. I'm playing Dead Space on stream tomorrow, but I really want to just play Darktide again, even though none of the things I talked about are coming tomorrow. That should tell you that although I have these pain points and these issues with the game, a lot of the things that people are upset about generally comes from some point of love or affection towards the game. The people that want the most improvements probably have hundreds of hours put into them. And the people that have shelved the game are shelving it because they're waiting for some of those promised improvements to hit the game. Now, these are, of course, not the huge sweeping improvements and content additions I would like to see. They're simply band-aids or small fixes that FatShark could make very quickly. And if they make them, it makes the game feel a little bit closer to where we want it to be. I'm not saying, hey, slap a couple band-aids on this and call it fixed. I'm saying that this is a zip tie that'll hold us through to get to the point that we need to be in the game. And your priorities for things that you want in the game might look entirely different for you. And that's okay. Like I've said before, if you have a different priority or a different experience for what Darktide is for you, that's by all means your prerogative. Share that, let it be known, but do it in a fashion that is constructive and creates a kind of, hey, this is what I don't like, or this is the thing that I'm having an issue with, and this is what I would like to see, or how that thing is affecting me. And it can hopefully be fixed. Who knows what the future looks like with Darktide? I'm excited for it because of what the possibilities could be for different subclasses or different maps or different hives, right? Going to a whole different underhive, as they've kind of hinted at from the conversations between the characters, or rattling snipers, whatever the hell it is. My brain has gone wild across so many different theories with myself and my friends. So no matter what, I am excited for the future of Darktide. I just want it to happen sooner rather than later, of course. But I still think that this is a game that is absolutely one that can be turned around, or it can survive, quote unquote, or it's not going to sink. It can be basically like a No Man's Sky, right? Where it had a crap launch that gets fixed and shored up. And really, if you take a look at the launches of Vermintide 1 and 2, you had a really rough launch. They launched the wrong version of the game in Vermintide. That's pretty huge. The stability and the performance issues of Vermintide 2 were massive. Vermintide 2 went through so many different crafting iterations before we get the one that we've got right now. And that's something to all consider, that FatShark is at least amendable to changing and modifying systems that do eventually make sense or come out to the system that we want, or at least really enjoy. So let this at least be a hopeful video for you for future conventions made to the game and stuff of that sort, as I am also really excited for stuff to come to Warhammer 40,000 Darktide. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, all that kind of fun action, but have a good one and take care.